What's going on there, guys? This is Coach Jay Hunt, and this is part 3 of the Runner's Mobility Series. Part 1 was on foot and ankle, part 2 was on the hip. Now we are addressing the knee. Now, I intentionally chose to do the knee part 3 on purpose. And the reason for that is because a lot of the symptoms and the issues that we have with our knees usually derive from an issue that we have in our foot and ankle, or they're coming from some type of imbalance within our hips. And unless you've had a direct impact blow from either a fall or through sports or a car accident, most of those knee issues are going to come from either looking down into the foot and ankle or going to come from looking up into the hip area. All right, so I intentionally focused on strengthening one of the most important muscles, not saying that others aren't, but one of the most important muscles in terms of keeping the knee tracking in place and in line to avoid issues like chondromalacia, to avoid, if you have any type of inflammation, tendonitis, all of that type of stuff that can go on in the knee, from runner's knee to jumper's knee. I mean, like, you name it, right? A lot of that stuff comes with tracking of the kneecap. So the muscle that I primarily focused on strengthening for you guys is called your VMO. That's your vastus medialis oblique muscle. The more street term name would be the teardrop, right? That's that muscle all the way at the bottom that you see that's nice and everybody wants to have for like their shorts. Well, that muscle not only looks good in shorts, but when you improve the functioning and the recruitment patterns of that particular muscle, it also helps keep the knee tracking in line. All right, so you're going to see a lot of that stuff in there. So, as always, enjoy the video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and ask whatever it is that you need to ask to get greater clarity on whatever it is that you need to do. And as always, right, like, these videos are for general purposes. If you need something more specific, right, with your issues that you may be dealing with, please just hit me with a message, right? As this is just one video, many of you probably need a program put together for some of the issues that you probably have. All right, peace out. All right, so let's attack our lower limb first, and we're going to address our calves. So the first thing that we want to do with our calves is when we're on the roller, we want to externally rotate at the femur, right, to make sure that your toes should end up being pointed out, as we want to hit the lateral part of our calf, right? That's on the outside, not the inside part that would say between your legs, right? That part of the calf, as we want to hit that outside part of our calf, as usually this is where a lot of the adhesions get developed. And if doing both legs at the same time on the foam roller, you don't feel enough tension, you can easily do one side at a time and cross one foot over the other and emphasize on just one leg at a time instead of trying to do both. The next thing we need to address is our IT band. So now we're going to go above the knee. We're going to go to our IT band, which laterally connects to the outside part of the knee. Right, it comes down from the outside part of our leg all the way down into the knee. And this particular connective tissue is also really responsible for the tracking aspect of our kneecap, making sure that it stays in place. Now, if you need greater intensity, please put both legs on top of each other, right, and that'll allow for a deeper manual release of pressure in this area. As we be mindful, foam rolling is more similar to getting a deep tissue massage than stretching. A lot of folks compared it to, and at the end of the day, you cannot compare the two. They are not the same. They work cohesively together, which you'll see, which I'm going to do today. They work together well, however, they are not the same thing. One is trying to break up some scar tissue that has developed on a particular muscle. The other is about extending and expanding the length of a particular muscle. All right, one's about extending and lengthening. The other is about breaking up tightness and trying to bring some increased blood flow to a particular area. Next, we're going to roll on our quads. All right, we're going to lie face down. We're going to roll these quads out. In doing so, you're going to stay at a pace of about 1 second per square inch. That's generally speaking for any part of your body that you're going to use a foam roller. As you see, I'm taking my time, going nice and slow, staying between the hips and the knees. So I'm not actually going on to the knee bone. I'm staying away from it. This also you can do if you feel that the tension is not great enough using both legs at the same time. You can do one leg simultaneously. And now we're going to move on to addressing right around the kneecap area itself. So we're going to get all in the VMO, that vastus medialis oblique muscle. This is where I'm beginning. But as you see, I literally stay right on the outside of the kneecap. You do not want to roll the ball on the kneecap itself, as you want to roll the ball right on the top part of the knee, all the way to the sides of that knee, from the lateral to the medial aspect of the knee, and offer some relief of tension in there. If you find that this is really sensitive, maybe you could start with a tennis ball. Right, it's not going to be as much pressure as a baseball, but what you do not want to do is completely avoid this altogether, as this is a really important exercise to do to help break up the tight and scar tissue that you have functioning around the knee. Breaking up this scar tissue is so important, as scar tissue doesn't allow adequate blood flow in particular areas of the body that the scar tissue is at. And as we all know, it's blood flow that helps us heal. It's the blood flow that carries the nutrients, right, that helps us, repair this damaged tissue. So you don't want to skip this because it's too much tension. You want to find a place of comfort where you still feel, right, a certain level of discomfort, but not too much to the point where it's excruciating pain, right? But it will be a little. All right, so now we're going to move on, and we're going to stretch the hip flexor, which is a little more of the upper thigh, not as much the lower thigh, but we are going to get to the lower thigh next. However, we want to, address the rectus femoris also, as the rectus femoris also directly connects into the kneecap. It also is a hip flexor, so it crosses over the hip as well. It's the only quad muscle that plays such a dual role in hip flexion and knee extension. Therefore, we need to address this as well. I will be going lower towards the knee and doing some work down there as well, but we definitely want to open up our hip flexors. We definitely want to open up that rectus femoris muscle, and as you see here, I'm doing that, and I'm in multiple planes of motion. As you see, I'm rotating and I'm bending, but primarily I'm keeping a pelvic tilt, right? You see I'm stacked. If you look, like shoulders, hips, knee, I'm like in one straight line. You notice I'm not lunging forward, as I'm intentionally trying to stretch that hip flexor, that rectus femoris muscle out, keeping a pelvic tilt. And on the leg that's back, I am squeezing the glute. squeezing the glute on the leg that is in the back to help get a deeper stretch. Now, I am going to get into a position to start stretching the lower part of the knee. So I'm not just going to stretch it, I'm also going to rotate it. I'm going to add some mobility to this move, as our knee is a hinge joint, right? It flexes and it extends. In and of itself, the kneecap doesn't rotate, but the femur bone does. And that's what basically makes up the top portion of our knee. So I want to bend the knee in this position, but then I want to rotate it from the inside and the outside. So I'm doing an internal and external rotation of my femur, but I got my knee in a flexed position so I can get a little bit more specific into the knee. And if you notice also, I don't have the leg elevated in the way I did before. So I'm actually, as I rotate, I don't feel as much of the tension as I did in my mid-upper quad, as now it feels I'm getting into the lower part of the knee. And as you can see in the picture, I'm also bringing, if you're lying down, as it may be challenging to do this, kneeling, it's the same thing. You lie face down, you lie in a prone position, and you just bend the knee, all right? And try to keep the rest of the body as flat as possible to the ground. And you just keep the foot as close to the butt as possible as you rotate the leg from side to side. So it's the same internal, external rotation of the femur, right? As you bend the leg side to side, but just lying face down, right? So that's just a little alteration of the same thing for those who may be challenged with pulling their leg side to side and balancing their body at the same time. It's also going to be important to address the muscular structure of the hamstring, as the hamstring also is very important in knee health. The hamstring plays two roles. One, it helps extend the hip, but then it also helps flex the knee. Now, I'm initially beginning this stretch, right? Focusing on the part that is for hip extension, so going up higher in the hip, and then I straighten the leg out. Once the knee is straight and I'm pulling that in towards the body, now I'm stretching more of the part that is responsible for knee flexion. I'm keeping my knee fully extended and I'm dorsiflexing my foot, right? So I'm pointing the foot down towards me as I continuously pull the leg in more and more. And you can see right where my hand is, that's the area that I'm attempting to stretch. Great. Now, as we move on, we are going to do a IT band stretch. Now, stretching the IT band is not an easy task to do by yourself. However, it still can be done, as you will need to go against a wall, extend your arm out. I like to start with both legs together and then getting down there and then taking the step forward. It really depends on how flexible or not you are in your way of getting into this position. You want to make sure that even though one of the feet are going to be in the front, that you do not internally rotate into that leg. You still want to keep that leg that you're stretching externally rotated, right? So that you can get deeper into that stretch. Because if you start to turn in, you're going to miss the IT. So to get into this position, hold on to the wall, Show you a nice sturdy wall, and just let that hip drop. Let the hip drop, get down nice and low in there, and really feel that stretch of that IT. Get in there nice and good. As the IT, as I described earlier, connects from our TFL muscle into our kneecap on the lateral aspect. So the VMO, right, the muscle that we need to build on the inside, helps align the knee from the medial, from the inside, and the IT tends to pull it on the other direction. So you need to have a healthy balance between the two. So now we're going to get a lot more into the strengthening exercises. This first one is just a simple low step. I'm using a low step compared to a high step, as a high step is going to activate the rectus femoris and other parts of the quad and leave some of the VMO out. The VMO's main responsibility is in the lower portion of the knee, and it's in the smaller degrees of range of motion. So as you get closer to a full extension, that's when the VMO starts to kick out. So I'm trying to keep my knee at no more than about 30%, 30 degrees of a bend, so that I can isolate my movement onto the VMO, that teardrop muscle that we are more familiar with on the medial inside part of our knee. So over time, you can add more resistance. Normally I would do this exercise with a lot more resistance, but for demonstration purposes, it's just doing it with body weight, and it truly depends on where you are in your knee health. Early in your knee health, you still may feel some discomfort in doing this exercise, so adding resistance may not be the best option for you. Okay, so the next exercise we're going to do is called a heel drop. Once again, you're going to get on a low step, like a curve maybe even, and you're just going to allow the heel on the opposite leg come down, right? So I'm allowing the right heel to lightly touch the ground as I allow the VMO on the left leg to extend my body back up. Once again, depending upon where you are in your knee health, you may need a lower step, right? I wouldn't suggest much more higher than this, because as I said, you want to keep things at about 30 degree bend, right? You want to be bent no more than 30 degrees to extension. It's very common to notice that one side may be significantly stronger than the other. As for me, my right side is much stronger than my left. As you can see, my balance is much greater on this side. So this is a very normal thing if you feel one side is stronger than the other. I would still suggest keeping the step the same height for both sides. I would not change anything. I would, keep everything pretty much the same between the two. Eventually, over time, the other side will be just as healthy, and you won't create any imbalances. Next thing I'm going to tackle here is straight leg lifts. Now, we were just talking about the VMO activates, 30 degrees or less. Well, in this particular exercise, you see the leg is fully extended. So for the knee to be fully extended, right, that VMO is activated for the leg to be fully extended. So what we're looking at here is, yes, I am using my hip flexors to lift my leg up. However, if the rest of the muscles in my quad, including my VMO, were not activating properly, then from my knee to my ankle, the knee would be bent. So although we're not having actual movement in the knee and extending or flexing, we're keeping an extension, we're not flexing it, we're working it isometrically by keeping the leg completely straight right? We're isometrically holding the contraction that is needed to be held for the VMO to keep that knee straight. So this is a really great very low impact exercise to do for those that have knee issues, that they find challenges with the previous two exercises. This may be a good place for that person to begin because it's more of an isometric hold, right? Instead of creating that extension and flexion and having any type of weight bearing. If you also notice, the weight bearing on the knee is really low. It's just the lower part of the leg. It's not your whole entire body weight. So this is like a really great exercise to get yourself going, especially if you're early in your stages of trying to create some health in your knee. Now, as it appears that I disappeared, I didn't. I just got myself a foam roller. So what you want now is a towel or a foam roller. And all you're gonna do is put the towel or the foam roller in the nook of your knee. And all you're going to do is focus on extending the leg at that point. So you're gonna have a very small, range of motion, but that's fine because we're really trying to target that VMO. So this is great. If this is maybe a 15 to 20 degree range of motion, that's phenomenal. That's exactly what you want. Over time, if you want to add ankle weights to increase the intensity, do so. But please understand that to ultimately make that knee healthier, it's going to be more about blood flow, which is usually going to come from more higher reps than trying to put on additional weight, thinking that's going to speed up your process. Adding ankle weights is not necessarily going to speed up the process as much as consistency is. Another really great exercise to build strength in that VMO is attaching a band to the back part of your knee and just doing same thing, about maybe 30 degree bend in the knee and just extending the leg. All right, so we're just slight bend in the knee, go up to the toe, plant the heel, make sure that heel goes straight and that quad is completely, fully, and totally extended. And that'll help ignite that VMO muscle. Excellent. So as I said before, our hamstrings are also really important in the health of our knee. But want to make sure that we're focused on hitting the appropriate part of the hamstring, which in this case, we need to focus on knee flexion. This is a great exercise to do to help build that strength in the knee. So you're just going to put your ankles, or even your calves on a exercise ball. Lift up the hips, keep the hips nice and high as you just roll the ball in and out. This would be a great exercise to really get them hamstrings fired and going and to help support that stabilization of the knee. The final exercise I'm going to teach you guys is you're going to lie flat down on your back with your knees bent. You're going to put the ball in between your kneecap, your knees, and you're going to just extend the knees while squeezing the ball. It is said to believe that when you activate your adductor muscles, your inner thigh muscles, that it's going to also help increasing the activation in your VMO muscle. On top of the fact that you're also extending the leg as a double whammy. So this is another great exercise for helping strengthen the knee.